The physical world is not the whole truth. It is only the surface tension of something deeper. Rick Levine. We live within brick walls under fluorescent lights and call it reality. We count numbers, measure each step, and believe that what can be verified is what is real. But some people are born to question that definition in their very essence. Pisces, the final sign of the Zodiac, didn't come here to verify. They came to feel. Under the influence of Neptune, the planet of the unconscious, intuition, and the formless universe, Pisces carries a kind of knowing no one ever taught them. It needs no reason, requires no logic. It arrives like a splash of cold water on a hot day, sudden, clear, undeniable. While others are still trying to label emotions, Pisces has already fully inhabited their quiet pulse. They don't need anyone to speak to know something is wrong. They don't need a goodbye to sense someone is about to leave. They don't need a backstory to feel the sorrow hiding behind a smile. You might call them vague, fragile, or lost in fantasy, but if you've ever walked into an old house and felt a chill down your spine, ever dreamt of something that later came true, ever just knew something was about to happen without knowing why, then you'll understand Pisces is not imagining. They're tuning in. They live in the delicate threshold between two worlds where matter dissolves into energy, where truth doesn't need evidence, and where time no longer runs straight, but spirals like a current of reincarnated memory. As the last sign of the Zodiac, Pisces carries the remnants of all human experience. Their symbol, two fish swimming in opposite directions, isn't contradiction. It is dual existence, one half drawn to the physical world, one half drifting into the deep layers of the collective unconscious. They don't walk the earth like others. They drift beneath the surface in the quiet rhythm of feelings that have no name but have long been known by them. If you've ever felt before others could understand, ever cried without knowing why, ever walked into a room and sensed a sadness that no one spoke of, then maybe, just maybe, you're vibrating on the same frequency as Pisces. And no, that is not weakness. That is an ancient form of emotional intelligence, a non-verbal, non-logical kind of knowing that is one of the oldest survival mechanisms of the soul, a mode of awareness the modern world has long forgotten until people like Pisces show up to remind us. You can't see the wind, but you believe in it when it moves your hair. You can't hold light in your hands, yet you walk each day by its guidance. So why do we doubt a hunch just because it doesn't appear to the five senses? Pisces doesn't need physical proof, because their proof is a quiet certainty. Not as clear-cut as data, not as loud as logic, but right, uncannily, hauntingly right. While the world is busy labeling emotions with scientific terms, Pisces is already living fully within the unnamed waves of those feelings. Sensation arrives like rippling water, needing no reason, no logic, yet clearer than any equation. Intuition, often dismissed as a vague sixth sense, is in fact the native language of the soul. In astrology, it's not magic. It's a natural manifestation of deep, energetic currents flowing through three key gateways. Neptune, the planet of hypersensitivity and the collective unconscious. The moon, the space where feelings rise before the mind can understand them. House 12, the final house on the natal chart, keeper of unresolved soul memories. For those with strong Pisces signatures, whether through sun, moon, or planets touched by Neptune, they don't need to think to know. They simply know. A knowing that defies explanation but ends up being accurate down to the smallest detail. You'll hear them say, something feels off though, but I don't know why. Something's about to happen, I can feel it. That person's going to leave, I'm certain. And often they're dismissed as dreamers, overthinkers, imagining things, until it happens so precisely it no longer feels like coincidence. Because Pisces doesn't wait for the world to react. They've already sensed it in a frequency the rest haven't caught up to. Astrology calls this receptivity the ability to perceive raw energy before it solidifies into behavior, speech, or circumstance. That's why Pisces often dreams of partners before they arrive, knows something's wrong even when everything looks fine. Hears the voice of a loved one who has passed in the still moment between sleep and wakefulness when no one else is listening or believing. If the birth chart is the compass of the soul, then Pisces' intuition is the dim glow of an ancient lighthouse, always there, never shifting, seen only by those quiet enough to notice. Not everyone is brave enough to live by intuition. Not everyone dares to bet on the invisible. But Pisces has no choice. They must follow it because without it, they lose direction in a world that logic alone cannot save them from. While others are still trying to prove, Pisces has already begun to listen. While the rest are demanding data they've already remembered through a deeper kind of memory, the memory of the soul. In a logical world, Pisces lives by myth. In a world addicted to proof, they are carriers of the unseen truth, inspired by Rick Levine. For most people, intuition is just a faint sensor, a way to vaguely guess what someone else is thinking. But for Pisces, it's a door flung wide open, welcoming in everything others have long since locked away. While the world is still asking what's going on, Pisces has already felt it, not through words, but through frequency. The frequency of a room holding unresolved grief, of eyes pretending to be fine while the soul silently screams, of a place where someone once died even when no one says it and no trace remains. No, this isn't mysticism. It's empathic clairvoyance, the profound psychic empathy that allows Pisces not just to understand, but to become the emotion of another in any given moment. No logic, no storytelling, just the body, a tight chest, stinging eyes, and an energy field trembling with something that has no name. You'll hear them say, "That place makes it hard to breathe. Something's off here." I don't know why, but this place makes me feel really sad. Short sentences, but each one contains a current of energy trying to be heard. The world calls them too sensitive. Astrology calls it resonance with the invisible archive where space itself stores unresolved sorrow. At the deepest level, Pisces doesn't just read energy. They become that place. They become that person. They become the hidden emotion someone else is trying so hard to suppress. It's as if their soul is a stream of water, always finding its way into the cracks no one else can see. They are not observers of pain. They absorb it like a sponge absorbs the ocean. Inspired by Rick Levine. And that is Pisces' silent tragedy. Because when you constantly absorb energy without boundaries, you begin to unravel from within. You feel emotionally depleted for no apparent reason. You're exhausted even though you haven't done much. You drift away from yourself because you're living in someone else's emotional landscape. The frightening part is Pisces often doesn't realize they've been energetically invaded. They think it's their own feeling, and that misidentification can spiral into depression, anxiety, and disorientation even when every clinical test comes back normal. It's no coincidence that House 12, the astrological house ruled by Pisces, governs karma, isolation, and the collective unconscious. The more sensitive you are, the easier it is to get swept into deep, energetic layers the modern world no longer hears. The more connected you are to others, the easier it is to lose sight of yourself. Intuition is a gift, but if not trained, it becomes a burden. Rick Levine. And that's why Pisces doesn't just need to listen to energy. They need to learn how to protect themselves from the very thing they're so skilled at sensing. Because sometimes the thing that saves others is the very thing silently eroding them. Once you begin to feel too much from this world, you'll start to wonder which world is truly real. After too many times of feeling chills that no one else notices, after too many bouts of exhaustion from carrying sorrow that doesn't belong to you, Pisces slowly drifts away from the surface of ordinary life. They no longer fully stand on solid ground. One foot remains in the tangible world, the other silently steps into the spiritual realm. Astrology doesn't place Pisces at the end of the zodiac by accident. This is the place where all cycles of the soul converge to dissolve. If Aries is vibrant, instinctive birth, then Pisces is the dissolution into the invisible ocean where all boundaries disappear. If Cancer represents personal emotions, Pisces is the emotion of the collective. If Scorpio symbolizes physical death, Pisces is the intersection of life and death. Pisces is not here to explain reality. Pisces is here to dissolve it and show what lies beneath, inspired by Rick Levine. Pisces doesn't try to understand the world through logic. They exist within it like mist, like a blurry memory from a lifetime not yet named. They are not as analytical as Aquarius, nor as awakened as Sagittarius. They float between the edges of sleep and wakefulness, a state Freud called pre-conscious and Jung described as the collective unconscious. That's why they can dream about things they've never studied, feel like they've been here before, even when it's their first time. Experience time as compressed, swirling, cyclical, not linear. For them, the boundary between physical life and the spiritual world faded long ago, not because they're dreamy, but because they live on a frequency beyond what the rest of humanity can hear. And that's why they are so easily lost. They have no anchor like Earth, steady and solid, no reason like air, rational and clear, no inner fire to burn a path through the fog, only water soft flowing and easily absorbed by anything stronger. Without something to hold on to, Pisces begins to dissolve, losing direction within themselves. becoming addicted to emotion, the thing they understand best, escaping reality because it's too heavy for soul, as delicate as mist, and sometimes living in so many layers of consciousness that they no longer know where their true self resides. To be a Pisces is to be everywhere and nowhere at once. It is to carry memories that are not yours and feel homesick for places you've never been. Rick Levine. So if they don't belong to logic, aren't lit by a reason, and don't stand firmly within the order of this world, why are Pisces here? The answer isn't found in textbooks or astrology charts. It comes through strange dreams, through feelings that seem like they've lived something before, through moments when they sense the soul of someone long gone, even if no one mentions it. And in those boundary-blurring experiences, Pisces begins to understand they are not just the living, they are messengers between the human world and the spiritual one. And to grasp that, we must enter the place Pisces returns to every night, the world of dreams, where they do not merely sleep but truly return. As the boundary between worlds thins, Pisces can no longer clearly distinguish between what is a dream, what is a memory, what is reality, and what is a message the soul is trying to send. For them, dreams are not merely reflections of the subconscious, as science often explains. Dreaming is a form of communication that transcends dimensions, a wave that carries them back to a space where time is not yet formed and form itself is not yet needed. Have you ever dreamed of a loved one who had passed, and they smiled and said everything's okay? Ever dreamed of an accident, a journey, and then it happened? Ever woken up in the middle of the night, tears running down your cheeks, heart aching without knowing why? For most people, these are just dreams, vague and easily forgotten. But for Pisces, these are the second layer of soul data. They don't just dream, they return. They return to a place they've been, or a place the soul needs them to visit, to witness, to understand, to speak on behalf of what hasn't yet been said. In astrology, such dreams are often triggered by three main elements. Neptune, the planet of illusions, past life memories, and timeless messages. House 12, the house of karma, previous lives, and earthbound souls. Moon aspects, emotional links to the deep unconscious, especially intense during lunar phases. Dreams are the language of Neptune, poetic, non-linear, and brutally honest in symbolic form. Rick Levine. For Pisces, dreams are not a place to escape. They are a second language reserved for the soul. They reunite with the departed, not because they miss them, but because that connection has never been severed. They dream of what's to come, not because they're guessing, but because their soul isn't bound by the limits of time. But not every dream is gentle, not every message is clear. Some nights they wake up more exhausted than after a full day because they're living two lives in parallel. A physical life full of demands and a soul life where they become a translator between realms. To dream is not to escape, it is to re-enter a space where truth wears no mask. Inspired by Rick Levine. If you've ever had a strange dream you couldn't forget, ever felt that someone was still present even after they were gone, ever felt a tightness in your chest while walking down a crowded street for no reason, you may be brushing against a level of consciousness Pisces knows all too well, the realm where the soul moves ahead of language. Yet living between two realities has never been an easy journey. One foot here, one foot in a place no one else understands, one half pulled by the physical world, one half listening to invisible signals. And then the question begins to rise, not from the mind, but from the core. How do you survive when you feel too much? How do you avoid dissolving into every sorrow, even when all you want is to heal? That question opens the next door in Pisces' journey. To keep seeing the souls of others, they must first learn how to protect their own. Those who frequently walk between two worlds will sooner or later learn a harsh truth. If you don't set boundaries, you will dissolve, and no one dissolves more easily than Pisces. After too many times of feeling on behalf of others, too many dreams that weren't theirs, too many eyes silently pleading for help they couldn't ignore, Pisces begins to drift into a blurred state, a place where they're no longer sure which emotions are truly their own. A sadness seeps in with no clear source, an anxiety that feels like someone else's yet echoes in their own chest, a vision of someone long gone returning in dreams as if they'd never left. When the line between me and others begins to fade, Pisces starts to burn out without understanding why. Empathy is not the same as responsibility, but Pisces in their deepest compassion often confuse the two. Inspired by Rick Levine, their deep empathy burdens them with invisible weight, saving the ones they love, saving even those who can't love them back, saving the lost souls, and sometimes even saving stories that were never theirs to carry. When compassion has no boundaries, it becomes a crack where every sorrow floods in. They brace themselves, pretend to be okay, until one day they break silently unseen. Pisces wounds have no form. They erode slowly like stone beneath the ocean's undertow. Each act of empathy chips away a piece of their being quietly but irreversibly. Without support, they often turn to escape, addicted to dreaming, addicted to others' emotions, addicted to the spirit realm. Some only feel useful when others are in pain. Some can no longer tell what's real and what's become a well-rehearsed emotional role. Astrology calls this the shadow of Pisces, a pathological kind of sacrifice where compassion turns into a chain that slowly depletes them. So what's the solution? Pisces cannot and should not stop feeling. Empathy is their essence, their soul's gift, but they must learn not to dissolve into it. What they need isn't more love, it's boundaries. Boundaries are not rejection, they are filters. Filters that ask who, what, and which emotions are allowed to touch me. They are how Pisces reminds themselves, I don't need to disappear in order for someone else to be seen. To avoid fading in this world, Pisces can't just keep absorbing. They need to preserve a part of themselves, even while the rest continues quietly carrying the pain of others. Not everyone gets access to you. Not everyone deserves an explanation from your heart. Some emotions should stay where they were born. To feel doesn't mean you must heal. What Pisces needs most is a moment of stillness each day. A small ritual enough to cleanse the energy stuck to them from the outside world. A glass of salt water, a page in a journal, a minute of silence. A hand resting gently on the heart, asking, is this feeling mine or someone else's? Return to the world what doesn't belong to you. Wash away what your soul never signed up for. And most importantly, you don't need to help in order to be loved. Real love doesn't require you to sacrifice yourself to be kept. You are not here to save the world. You are here to not abandon yourself. Pisces must learn the difference between divine compassion and spiritual codependency, Rick Levine. Because if not, they'll begin to vanish, soft as smoke, quiet as water, no longer in form, though still existing. But when Pisces starts to hold on to themselves, when their compassion is no longer an open door for all, but a guided, flame, discerning, intentional, sacred, that's when they become more than a passive absorber. They become a reminder, not a burden, a luminous soul, not a depleted one. You've been called dreamy, fragile someone with their head in the clouds. You've cried without knowing why, dreamt of things before they happened, sensed a hidden soul behind someone's smile. And at some point you've asked yourself, is there something wrong with me? No, there isn't. Not at all. You are not just sensitive. You are a soul programmed to remember not personal memories, but deeper layers beyond time. Spirits yet to cross over, lessons still unresolved, promises the world has yet to fulfill. You are not here to escape reality. You are here to remind reality of what it has forgotten. Inspired by Rick Levine, you didn't come here to fit in. You came to recall the sacred through intuition, through silence, through a light that doesn't dazzle but never fades. And to do that, you must learn to hold on to yourself, to remember without getting lost, to feel without dissolving, to love without losing your core. In a world that's becoming increasingly noisy, you are the one who gathers the fragments of forgotten souls, listens to what no one else is still enough to hear, and stands at the edge of existence to remind the world, we are not just flesh, we are memory, emotion, and invisible light. Pisces doesn't just end the zodiac. Pisces transcends it and becomes the ocean where all signs return. Rick Levine. You are the final ocean and the starting point of a new cycle. You are a healing soul, not through noise, but through presence. And if you've ever felt different, out of place, you're right. Not because you are lost, but because you were born to remind the world that the soul has never disappeared. And if you are still on your journey to find yourself, don't walk it alone. Let astrology be more than a map. Let it be a guiding light. One that leads you back to the parts of you you thought were forgotten, but never truly left.